The Picts, DNA of the Painted Warriors. In 2023, researchers published the first major ancient DNA study ever conducted on confirmed Pictish skeletal remains. The study analyzed genetic material from 8 individuals recovered from burial sites in northeastern Scotland, dating to between the 4th and 7th centuries AD. What the results showed dismantled over 1,000 years of myth, mischaracterization, and deliberate distortion, and revealed, in the dry language of genomic data, who the most feared warriors in Roman Britain actually were. Their name came from their enemies. The Romans called them Picti, the painted ones, a reference to the body paint or tattoos that the warriors apparently used before battle. The Picts themselves left no written language. They left no histories, no king lists, no philosophical texts. They left monuments, hundreds of carved standing stones distributed across northern and eastern Scotland, covered in intricate symbols and animal figures that no one has yet been able to fully decode. They left hill forts and settlements, and they left their bones. For most of the past millennium, those bones were the subject of extraordinary speculation. Because the Picts left no written record, other people wrote their history for them, and those other people, primarily Roman writers and later medieval Irish and Scottish chroniclers, had political and cultural reasons to portray the Picts in ways that served their own purposes. The result was a distorted portrait: savages, painted barbarians, bearers of strange customs incomprehensible to civilized people. The 2023 DNA study changed that. By reading the genetic record directly from the bones, researchers bypassed everything that had been written about the Picts and went straight to what the Picts themselves had left behind. The answer to the question, who were the Picts, turned out to be simultaneously simpler and more interesting than the myths suggested. The study was led by a team from the University of Central Lancashire and involved collaboration with Scottish archaeological institutions, including Historic Environment Scotland. It was published in the journal PLOS Genetics in September 2023. The first peer-reviewed ancient genomic study specifically focused on confirmed Pictish individuals and immediately attracted international scientific attention for the quality of the data and the clarity of its conclusions. Sometime around 600 AD, placing him squarely within the period of Pictish cultural dominance, some perceived spiritual or physical danger. But it was the condition of his skull that captured immediate attention. His genetic profile was consistent with indigenous British Isles ancestry, firmly connected to conflict, a prisoner, or something else entirely. His story, preserved in bone and genetic code or ritual activity, stretching back over 3,000 years. The cave's combination of dramatic genetics analyzed skeletal material from 8 Pictish individuals recovered from 2 sites, related to modern populations from Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. The western and northern Celtic fringe Picts had migrated from Scythia, the steppe regions of modern Russia and Ukraine, a theory that circulated in Scotland, connected by deep biological ties to the broader population of Iron Age Britain. To establish where the Pictish genetic profile fit in the long-term sequence of Scottish population history. Pictish populations from the northern and northeastern regions, one of the most provocative claims about Pictish, primarily Irish and Northumbrian writers who viewed Pictish customs with a combination of fascination around principles that the rest of the early medieval world found alien. The ancient DNA the chronicles described. It also does not disprove the practice of matrilineal royal succession to portray northern neighbours as exotic and strange. The question of Pictish genetic affinity of the Pictish population, but too small to resolve fine-grained questions distinctive and haunting monuments in the archaeology of Britain. Distributed across northeastern Scotland carry only the distinctive Pictish symbols, the crescent and V-rod, the double disc, and this sequence documents the Christianization of Pictish culture in visual form across a The Romans' relationship with the Picts is one of the more illuminating case studies in the limits of imperial power that ancient history provides. When Roman forces, under Agricola, marched northward through Scotland in the 70s and 80s AD, they encountered resistance that prevented the completion of the conquest of Britain that was always nominally the goal. The northern peoples, including the ancestors of the historical Picts, proved sufficiently difficult to subdue that the investment required was not considered worth the return. The Romans withdrew to more defensible lines. Hadrian's Wall, built beginning in 122 AD across the narrow waist of Britain from the Solway Firth to the River Tyne, was not simply a military barrier in the conventional sense. It was an administrative boundary and a statement about the limits of profitable Roman governance. North of the wall, the cost of maintaining Roman control exceeded the value of the territory. South of it, the investment was worthwhile. The wall encoded that calculation in stone. Ancient DNA analysis of individuals from the wall zone and its immediate hinterlands has documented genetic mixing between the military population of the wall, drawn from across the empire, and the local northern British population. Roman soldiers stationed on the wall came from the Rhine frontier, from North Africa, from the Balkans. Their children, born in the wall zone with local women, carried the genetic evidence of this contact. The Pictish leader named Calgacus, known to us only through Tacitus's account of a speech attributed to him before the Battle of Mons Graupius, remains one of the most resonant voices from this period. Tacitus, writing in the voice of Calgacus, produced the phrase that became a summary of Roman imperial ambition. Whether Calgacus spoke anything like these words, the sentiment captured something about the northern people's experience of Roman pressure that the DNA record confirms in its own way. The people north of the wall endured, while the Roman presence eventually ended. Isotope analysis of individuals from Roman period sites near the wall has identified some individuals of probable northern British or Pictish ancestry living within the Roman zone, possibly traders, hostages, or voluntary migrants attracted by the economic activity that the Romans files. The transformation of Pictish culture in the 6th through 9th centuries AD is one of the most significant and least understood processes in the history of early medieval Scotland. The arrival of Christianity came primarily through the Irish missionary tradition. The most significant individual in this process was Columba, an Irish monk of royal descent who established his famous monastery on the island of Iona in 563 AD, and from there conducted extensive missionary activity across the Pictish kingdoms. His mission to King Bridie at the fortress near Inverness, recorded in hagiographic sources with inevitable legendary embellishment, marks the beginning of the documented Christianization of the northern Pictish elite. The conversion process was not instantaneous or uniform. The carved stone sequence, with its gradual incorporation of Christian symbols, alongside, and eventually replacing, the traditional Pictish symbols, documents the process visually over several centuries. The Picts absorbed Christianity into their artistic tradition while maintaining distinctive local elements. The Viking pressure of the 8th and 9th centuries fundamentally altered the political landscape of northern Britain. Sustained Norse raiding of coastal and island communities, including the devastating attack on Iona in 795 AD, forced the existing kingdoms into new defensive arrangements. The traditional historiography of this period focuses on the union of the Pictish and Gaelic kingdoms under Kenneth MacAlpin around 843 AD as the founding moment of Scotland. The ancient DNA evidence for this period is consistent with absorption rather than replacement. The genetic profiles of medieval Scottish populations show continuity with the Pictish ancient DNA from the earlier period, combined with the expected addition of Norse and Gaelic genetic signals from the migrations of the Viking Age. The Picts did not cease to exist. They became Scots, retaining their genes while adopting new cultural and linguistic identities. The loss of the Pictish language is one of the most significant cultural extinctions in British history. Pictish appears to have been a P-Celtic language, related to Welsh, Cornish and Breton, rather than to the Q-Celtic family that includes Irish and Scottish Gaelic. As Gaelic became the dominant language of the Scottish kingdom from the 9th century onward, Pictish retreated and eventually disappeared from use.